Action.
Good day. I am going to present a study conducted by yours truly and Mrs. Marife Alviento. I study on the preservation of culture and tradition of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines. The tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines call themselves as Bagos, and one of the indigenous peoples in the country who originally inhabited the borders of Cordillera in the Ilocos region, and those who trace their ancestry from the old mountain province with distinct language and culture. The Bago community plays an important role in preserving ethnic religions, linguistic traditions, and characteristics markedly different from the rest of the population. According to Quaken, culture is that complex whole which includes knowledge, belief, morals, laws, customs, and capabilities and habits acquired by man as a member of society. Culture is handed down from generation to generation, learned by a person in the course of his development as a member of a particular society, so that in the course of time, some are forgotten and some are changed or undergo renewal or modernization. It is a basic determinant of personality and is meaningful to human society because of its symbolic quality. That is, if the culture is understood. A culture cannot be appreciated if it is not understood. Several laws protect the rights of the indigenous cultural communities. Article 2, Section 22 of the Philippine Constitution emphasizes that the state recognizes and promotes the rights of indigenous cultural communities within the framework of national unity and development. As used in the Constitution, the term indigenous cultural community refers to those non-dominant groups in our country which possess and wish to preserve ethnic religions or linguistic tradition or characteristics markedly different from the rest of the population. This study is undertaken to find out the culture and tradition of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines. This paper has the general objective of evaluating the preservation of culture and the tradition of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines. Specifically, the study describes the following questions. Number 1, what are the culture and tradition of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines? Number 2, what are the activities of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines to preserve and promote their culture and tradition? And number 3, what are the programs of the city government of Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines for the preservation and promotion of culture and tradition of the tribal communities in the city? Scope and delimitation. This study aimed to determine the preservation of culture and tradition of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines. This study employed the qualitative method of research where selected tribal leader respondents were interviewed, supplemented with a questionnaire as an instrument in data gathering. The respondents of this study are the elders and chieftains of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines. Result of this study. For problem 1, what are the culture and tradition of the tribal communities in Quezon City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines? The Bagos have their own culture, which has persisted to this time despite the inroads of Western influence and the so-called modernization. This culture was preserved despite of the influence of lowland brothers. A. Language. Generally, the Bagos speak the dialect akin to the Kankanaey, Indians, and Ibalois. However, to this day, most of them speak the Ilocos dialect with distinct intonation. Examples are Sinoy na Kasta, why, what happened, Tapay, rice wine, Manapu, native priest, Sapu, prayer, Ampin, all, Sumaa, to arrive, Napupuka, awake, Minpintas, beautiful, Ambit, baby girl, Amboy, baby boy, Enga, Unga, baby, child, Minlamek, whole, Minsipnget, dark, Minmina, expensive, Nakigwa, Kinbaba, lower portion, Tumayaw, fly, Minliba, to wash clothes. Some Bago jargons are ayaket or yaw. This is said when dismayed, disappointed, or amazed. Kasus and ayik. These are also said when dismayed or disappointed. Nitin. This is said when one happens to commit mistake. On the traditional political governance, the Council of Elders. A Council of Elders governs the traditional Bago community, and the center for operation is the Abung. The council is composed of people who are trusted by the community by their wisdom and dignity, persons who possess leadership qualities that elicit respect, and personalities highly regarded by the residents. It sees to it that activities in the community is all participated by the residents. It calls for a community meeting during emergencies, warns and confronts violators of community rules and regulations, represents the community peace talks with neighboring councils, institutes tributes and community duties, and maintains cohesiveness and oneness in all community undertakings. Songs, chants, and dances. This concerns the culture and traditions of the tribal communities, which are usually orally and rhythmically performed in celebrations such as fiestas, festivals, wedding, and others. Some of these are Dayeng or Ayeng. It is an extemporaneous choral chant in rhyme. The rhyme of the Dayeng depends upon the kind of occasion. Duaya. This is a chant sung usually at the culmination of a wedding feast when the gifts, paruan, usually money, are wrapped with a blanket. The essence of the duaya is to advise the couples how the gifts are used. Ukayam. Ukayam. It is a ballad sung during wedding parties and other joyful celebrations. Bayao. This is a ballad chanted during wakes or vigils. It relates the life history of the dead person, focusing on his good deeds. However, some cannot avoid mentioning the bad things too. Dances. Tadek or Pinanyuan. It is a courtship dance imitating the wooing of a rooster to his letting hen. The costume. Baag. G-string and tapis. Baag is worn by the old men and tapis is worn by the women. Puruntong or putut. Balyusan. The lower part and the balyusan for the upper costume. Balyusan is up to bottom level and with a 3/4 cut sleeve and a narrower and higher neckline. It is dirty white cotton wool cloth. Kain and dalagma. Women wear this, kain for the lower part and lamma for the upper part. Letter E, musical instrument. We have the gangsa or the brass songs, sulibao, elongated wooden drum with kohai cover. Lukangkang, it is made of light bamboo with holes near the note to control the sound. Pito, mouth flute, a piece of bamboo with a small hole near the note and 3 or 4 succeeding holes. It is blown by the mouth. Kalaleng, nose flute. This is similar to that of the pito, but is blown by the nose. Abistong, abiliao. This is made of bamboo slat carefully carved so that when struck, it produces sound in between lips. Tangguyo. It is made of carabao horn It is played by blowing and is used when calling a meeting in the Apon, or to announce a gamal, or to announce when someone dies. Problem 2. What are the activities of the tribal communities in Canton City, Philippines, to preserve and promote their culture and tradition? Every December, the tribal communities in Canton City, in coordination with the city government of Canton, celebrate tribal festivities or begnas. It is one of the most colorful social activities of the tribal communities in Canton, where attendance of the tribal community members is very important. During the festival, native dances, cultural songs, and banquets are held. It aims to preserve and harness the city's rich historical values, where it promotes the old customs, traditions, culture, and values of the tribal communities in the city. Problem 3. What are the programs of the city government of Canton City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines, for the preservation of culture and tradition of the tribal communities in the cities? Letter A. The tribal communities in Canton City, Ilocos Sur, Philippines are represented in the City Council called the Sangguniang Panlungsod. This is in accordance with Section 16 of Republic Act No. 8371, otherwise known as the Indigenous Peoples' Rights Act of 1997, which explicitly provides that indigenous cultural communities, indigenous people, have the right to participate fully, if they so chose, at all levels of decision-making in matters which may affect their rights, lives, and destinies through procedures determined by them, as well as to maintain and develop their own indigenous political structures. Consequently, the state shall ensure that the ICC's IPs shall be given mandatory representation in policy-making bodies and other local legislative councils. Letter B. Establishment of schools of living traditions accordingly. Canton City Ordinance number 037-17 was passed entitled An Ordinance Establishing the Bago Tribe School of Living Tradition in the City of Canton, Province of Ilocos Sur. The proponents of this ordinance stated that the formation of School of Living Tradition in the City of Canton is very important, so that children who belong to Bago tribe will be trained well on their traditional dances and learns to value their identity. According to the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, the establishment of schools of living traditions aims to encourage culture specialists, masters to continue with their own work, develop and expand the frontiers of that work, and train younger people to take their place in the future. Recommendations. The researchers made the following recommendations based from the findings and conclusions. Number 1, the tribal community should continue to observe their culture and traditions. The conduct of conferences will be of big help to strengthen the practices of their culture and traditions. They should try to understand the wisdom of their culture and traditions. However, they may retain what is good and beneficial and may not follow those that have no scientific meaning and relevance. Number 3, the distillation of mores and traditions to the youth should be given attention, because this is one way of instilling to their children the love of their culture. Number 4, more representatives of the tribal communities should be elected or appointed in the provincial or even in national offices to ensure that the interests of the tribal people will always be taken into consideration. And we have here our references. Thank you very much.